Hey guys, and welcome to another Game Explained discussion. I'm your host, Andre Seegers, and this time we're joined by Ash Paulson to discuss The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, which is something I never thought I would actually say. So let's get started. Okay, Ash, so last night Jimmy Fallon had on Reggie as well as Shigeru Miyamoto to showcase Super Mario Run on the iPhone, as well as a surprise showing of the Nintendo Switch, plus Breath of the Wild running on the Switch. So it was pretty cool to see the Switch in person, or on TV in a real life setting, running an actual game. So there's not a ton of new stuff to talk about here, but I figured we could talk about it in general. So what did you think about this event in general, Ash?
No, there's definitely some stuff to talk about here, because I thought the segment was great. I thought this was the kind of thing that Nintendo really needs to do more of, and I think they pulled it off well. I think the only mistake they made was not telling more people about it beforehand, because, not only did they show off Super Mario Run, which, they showed that off, that was fine, but I feel like the way they showed off the Switch, and especially Breath of the Wild on the Switch, that is exactly the kind of, every man just here's what the Switch does, here's why you want it, here's what's cool about it, and here's why you need one. It was very direct, very basic messaging, and it wasn't a bunch of PR doublespeak. It's like, hey, this is our new thing, this is the really cool thing that it does, you want one, don't you? And then they were out. That's all that Reggie did, and he was in and out, and I thought it was a great bit.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think they totally nailed it. The presentation, the audience, even Jimmy Fallon's overreacting to everything actually worked out in their favor this time.
It did.
So I see where you're coming from. Maybe they should have made a bigger deal about it, but with the demographic they're targeting here being, primarily non-gamers or a non-gaming focused demographic, it wouldn't have mattered had they announced it beforehand.
Oh, I just meant so more people who really, more enthusiasts could know about it and tune in live, not necessarily to bring in more buyers.
Right.
Just so more people who already care about this stuff will know that it's happening.
That's true, but do you think I might have lost something by not being a surprise? Because I think part of the reason why this was so exciting was because we didn't expect it. We just knew it might be Super Mario Run, and that was it.
Yeah, it probably would have kind of ruined the surprise aspect of it a bit, which there, that also has merit. There's also, when something goes viral, you can, people are saying, oh, have you heard about that new, Switch video? Instead of it being, oh, Nintendo announced that the Switch video is going to go live on Jimmy Fallon at such and such time. There's a little less excitement behind it, so I see what you're saying.
I think there was something to this is a surprise element. Just seeing that question block out there, it's what's inside that thing? It's oh
yeah,
god,
I had a feeling.
Speaking of which, Laura K. Dale is slacking. How come this wasn't leaked beforehand?
I know, Laura, what's going on? You didn't know the Switch was going to be on Jimmy Fallon already?
Right?
Come on.
I'm kidding, Laura.
Yeah, no, we're both definitely kidding.
So I think part of the reason why this is such a surprise too, besides not knowing about it going in, is the fact that this is the first time we've seen the Switch in a non-trailer setting. Where not everything was completely prearranged beforehand. We didn't have the chance to redo a take however many times we want to present this in the best possible light possible. So I thought it was really cool seeing it this way, and kind of speaking of which, but when Jimmy Fallon started trying to flip out the kickstand, and I'm like, man, it looks like he's gonna it looks like he's gonna break that thing off. I wonder if Reggie's pushing down and turning away. Don't do that, Jimmy. What are you doing?
Well, yeah, because his hands were shaking. I don't, obviously these segments are really overproduced anyway, right. But at least from where I'm sitting, it looked like Jimmy was actually really genuinely excited. It seemed like his fanboy kind of shone through a bit on that segment. Now, that might have just been Jimmy Fallon being Jimmy Fallon, but it seemed like he was pretty freaking excited to be playing the Switch.
I think there is a fine distinction between Jimmy Fallon pretend being excited and actually being excited. And I think
that's
here
very true.
We're seeing him actually excited, especially with the knowledge he had of Zelda's history and how in Miyamoto, how he came up with the idea for the game. And just the reverence he seemed to have for Nintendo and Miyamoto in general. So I think that was fun to see. Someone that was actually legitimately excited for this product, showing it off. That resonated well with the audience, I think. And speaking of which, I think Super Mario Run, strangely, may have helped. Because that game, again, actually looked fun in the setting they were showing it off in.
You think so? I don't think it looks bad. It looks like a mobile 2D Mario game. It doesn't look bad to me at all, but it doesn't look like something I'm excited for.
I would say I'm more impressed by it than I thought I would be.
Nope, too late. Game of the year already.
Because there are two major hurdles it has to overcome. One, it's a new Super Mario Brothers game, or a themed game. And two, it's on mobile, neither of which I care that much about these days. And yet, it actually, they're doing enough different stuff here. It actually makes it feel like it'll be set apart from the other new Super Mario Brothers games in a positive way. And it'll make you play this game in a little bit of a different way. Now, whether or not, it's going to have much legs to it, I have no idea. But I do think, for their first true mobile gaming effort, it looks like they're kind of on point here. Like, it looks fun. Jimmy seems to be having fun, which again doesn't really say anything. But and I don't know. Like, I think what they're doing here makes a lot of sense, and I think you might even be able to try. You might be trying to play the game even later today, right? Ash, potentially.
I might. I'm going to try to go by the Apple Store and see if I can get my hands on one of the hands-on demos they have. And I mean, I do want to say, like, I think they nailed the component of mobile that they really needed to hit, and that is the one-handed gaming. Nintendo has shown that they understand that part of the mass appeal of smartphone gaming is that you can do it one-handed.
Exactly.
And that's one thing that they've really been focusing on with marketing for Mario Run, is that you can play it one-handed. So that at least shows me that Nintendo understands why mobile is such a big hit, and they're not just saying, okay, mobile's a big hit, we don't know why, but we gotta just throw a mobile game on there so we make some of that money. Right. Like, they seem to understand what makes mobile tick, and that doesn't surprise me because it's Nintendo. So
I'm not sure they do, because there's not a ton of microtransactions in the game. Like, you buy it straight out.
That's a good point.
So that's actually why I'm partially excited for it, because they are treating it like a game and not this everlasting expansion that you have to buy in piecemeal, right?
It is interesting, because I believe it's going to be $10, right? $9.99?
Correct, yeah.
So I do wonder if that's just targeting just above the mobile pricing sweet spot, because I see people turning their nose up at prices like $7.99, $8.99 for games like Final Fantasy VI, which, I mean, then that's a huge, that's a ton of content right there. So I do wonder if $10 is just overshooting just a bit for that pricing sweet spot in the App Store.
I think it makes sense for them to price it this way. I mean, don't get me wrong. I wish it personally were cheaper. Like, I wish it were free. Sure. That'd be awesome. I also wish everything were free.
Exactly.
From Nintendo's perspective, I think it makes sense for their first game to come out, be like, yo, this is going to be a quality game. It's going to come at a premium price, $10.
Especially if they say, yo, that's even better. Hey, yo, this is going to be a quality game, guys.
Can you imagine if that's how Nintendo Directs were started?
That'd be amazing, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, if it's a sign of things to come, potentially, this game actually is fun and is a quality experience, which I think it looks to be, at least, given everything surrounding it like being a mobile game and also a new Super Mario Brothers game, which I shouldn't harsh on it that bad. Like, new Super Mario Brothers games aren't terrible. I'm just sick of them.
I mean, I think that's kind of that's where a bit of like my lack of hype comes from, is the fact that, okay, this is a new Mario game on smartphones, and that's cool. Like, I like Mario, and even one-handed touch controls fine, no problem. But it's just the same aesthetics that I've been seeing, that we've all been seeing since like 2006. I think it was the original New Super Mario Bros. Came out, and it's like, well, I guess this one's more based on you, so I guess we could say that if you really want to be kind. But like, I've seen these same grassy backgrounds with the giant slanted mountain slabs, and like, I've seen them over and over again, and and the music, like, they're not even changing the music either. I mean, I guess it's slightly rearranged, but still, they're the same tunes, and it's like, we've been seeing this forever, and I'm just getting sick of it.
But you know what we haven't seen forever, Ash, is the return of the Ninja enemy from Super Mario World.
That's so true, and actually, Ninjas are originally from Mario 2, right?
They are, that's right.
Yeah. So that was actually a really cool surprise to see.
Yeah, that was cool. Like, I think that's one of the few truly new things they're adding. Again, I'm more impressed by what it is, or maybe more by what it isn't. Like, I think this is a good mobile effort. Is it necessarily going to be an amazing Mario game? I don't know yet. Probably not, honestly. But it could be the kind of thing that you just, that fun thing you start up just to waste time when you're on a train, something of that nature. But I think you touched on something there with it being one-handed. Like, I think Nintendo that's been a big focus of it for them. I'd be very surprised if they ever make a mobile game that's not one-handed, especially with we've seen how they often cater to the Japanese market, and mobile's huge in Japan. I mean, as it is here too, but also as public transit in Japan, where, as you mentioned, like, you're holding onto a rail, for instance, like on a train, like, you only have one hand to play. So I think they're kind of nailing it for what Mario Run is, but I haven't played myself yet, so we'll ultimately see.
Yeah, no, we'll see. I mean, I do think that there's going to be a wide contingency of people out there who are going to buy it sight unseen just because it's Mario on their phone and it reminds them of their childhood, and they can just play it in line, like at the bank, like as you said. I think for people like me and other enthusiasts, it's kind of like a matter of, okay, this game might be great, but why would I play this when I could just bring out my DS and play Pokemon Moon instead? For enthusiasts. Right. But for everyone else, I think there are like I said, a lot of people who are going to be like, oh, Mario on my phone, $10, whatever, this reminds me of my childhood, and done. And that's what Nintendo's banking on.
I'm sure they are. I do think they're
Yeah.
treating mobile and Super Mario Run as kind of like a Trojan horse of sorts, where like it gets people hooked on Nintendo's content, before, looking for something deeper with hopefully the Switch. I think that is Nintendo's hope, like bring more people into the fold of the Nintendo platform in general. So
it's good timing. The release of Mario Run is good timing to kind of get people thinking about the Switch.
I mean, absolutely, and that's why I think they tied these two announcements together. The showing of Mario Run with the Switch, like it cements the connection of those two automatically, and bringing in Breath of the Wild as well.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get back to Breath of the Wild, because that's really, the biggest thing here, and the Switch specifically. What did you think of seeing it again in action on the Switch? Now, I know it's hard to know specific differences between the Wii U version, but I did notice that I actually did a like frame-by-frame count, or not a count, but I went frame by frame to see if the frame rate was as smooth as it looked to be, and it is 100% smooth from what we saw of the Switch version, which, that excites me. Like that, I mean, of all the improvements they could have made to the Wii U one, that's really the one I wanted.
Yeah, no, same here. I mean, I think that was kind of the big question before we saw the Switch version was like, okay, this game already has a great art style, but how's it going to run? Because we've obviously been noticing and have talked about the fact that the Wii U seems to have a little trouble running Breath of the Wild. So I wasn't sure if it was just that good old placebo effect when watching the Switch version on Fallon last night, but I'm glad to hear that what you found examining, the frames kind of backs up what I think I saw, which is the fact that it runs so much more smoothly on the Switch. Like, it doesn't necessarily look better.
Right.
Like, the art style is the same and the graphical fidelity is the same, but that's okay because it's a great looking game. But in terms of the just running, it's so much more stable. At least it seemed like it.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope that's a sign of how things will, of how it will be for the rest of the game. It's impossible to say for sure right now. We saw so little of it, but it looks promising so far. So,
yeah, I mean, they could have cherry-picked that part of the game for him to play because they've got it running perfectly. So we don't know yet.
That very well could be.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think about seeing the Switch just in general? Like, because this is again our first actual look at the system outside of like a very pre-developed trailer.
I'm thinking it looks pretty sleek. I'm liking the size. It's pretty small. It's slim. Obviously, a complete 180 from the big and chunky Wii U gamepad. So that's really nice to see.
Actually, that's a great point, real quick. Like, you can really see how thin it is here with how Reggie was holding it at one point. Like, it looks almost like iPad thin. Not quite, but
it really, but it's super thin, and I'm really happy to see Nintendo kind of adopting some really sleek design standards, I guess, because Nintendo tends to make more toy-like devices. There's nothing wrong with that. Right. I mean, the GameCube is still one of my favorite systems just from a physical design standpoint. Yeah. But the Wii U gamepad often came off kind of like a Fisher-Price toy with the glossy surface and the big chunky round edges, and it's kind of nice to see Nintendo adopting something a little sleeker, thinner, just with a little more consideration this time around.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to see, and I think it was also out of necessity, not to
for sure
rhyme. But yeah, especially like with mobile devices, like you want something that looks good out of the house, and people see that, like, what is, when they're asking themselves, what is that you're playing? They need to be eye-catching in that way, and I think it was here. Now, I have seen one concern come up from some people, and that's some people have already been commenting on the screen quality of the Switch itself, saying it looked, washed out, and you can't really see it that well in the video. And I'm like, sorry.
Yeah. I'm sorry, but water is wet and sky is blue. I mean, it's a camera, it's an off-camera footage of another screen. That's what it's going to look like.
Yeah, it's off-camera footage at an angle, like a pretty drastic angle from what Jimmy was playing it from. And
there's some glare you can see on the screen. Yeah.
Under the stage lighting, which is intense. Like, that lighting's intense. So I think it's way too premature to be saying anything about the screen quality at this point.
Me too. I mean, I'm not worried about the screen at all from what I've seen, just because you can't judge that based on off-camera footage.
Yeah.
You literally cannot.
Although, with that said, I really do hope that Nintendo puts a nice screen in here, although I'm not entirely sure they will, because we've seen Nintendo cheap out in this way before, especially on the 3DS, which is really weird, because there are times, like, Nintendo basically just throws in whatever screens they get their hands on that for the 3DS, which means you'll often have two entirely different screens for the top half and bottom half of the unit. So, like, one may be an IPS display and the other one won't.
Well, I think the rumor right now is that the Switch screen is 720p, right, when playing mobile?
Correct, yeah.
Based on what I saw last night, I'm not worried yet. I mean, I actually was thinking, even from the I guess accounting for the off-camera, footage, I actually thought the screen looked pretty good. I was like, oh, that looks pretty crisp and looks pretty nice, and I wasn't worried about the washed out colors because I knew I wasn't looking directly at the screen. So I think it's going to be fine, and I also kind of feel like Nintendo at least has made me think they understand the fact that they need to nail the mobile aspect of the Switch. And if that's the case, then I think they know that one of the main sticking points for the Wii U for a lot of people was the fact that the gamepad screen was kind of crappy.
Right. Yeah.
So I think they know that they need to get that at least better this time. And if it does actually turn out to be a 720p screen, that's already better than what we got with the gamepad.
Yeah, it's already better than a lot of people expected.
Yeah.
So absolutely. Yeah, and that would, having a nice screen in there would tie into the advertising angle, like when you're out in the world and people see it, like, hey, that's a sleek looking thing with a, pretty nice screen. What? Tell me more.
Yeah, that's the thing, is if you're carting around this thing that has a Wii U gamepad-esque screen or slightly above that, that's not going to be impressive to people out in the wild who just see it and think, oh, wow, I want one of those too. They're going to see, oh, that screen kind of sucks compared to my smartphone that has a gorgeous, high-resolution OLED display. So I think Nintendo knows they at least need to come correct with a nice enough screen.
But would it be impressive out in the wild if you were playing Breath in the Wild?
That would be. that would be. I knew that was your next question. I already knew it.
Well, actually, speaking of which, then, so we actually also saw the Switch functionality for the first time in a real life setting, and that's we actually saw Reggie pick up the system out of the dock and actually hand it to Jimmy to play it on the system itself, which is cool. It looked to be pretty seamless. I did notice one thing, is that it looked like when Reggie, right after he pulled it out, before he handed it over to Jimmy, he tapped something on the screen, or hit a button, and you could hear like a sound effect, like as if the system automatically paused it, and you had to confirm before you actually start taking control of the Switch itself. Which I thought was interesting, I think makes sense. It's not, quite as sleek looking as in the trailer, but from a usability standpoint, it makes more sense. I wouldn't continue immediately when you pick it up, right?
I think it makes sense. I mean, think about you have a kid running around and, your kid picks up the Switch and, say you're in the middle of a boss fight or something, right? If it doesn't pause automatically, then you're hosed. So I think it does make sense, just in case, to, have a little on-screen confirmation that says, hey, do you want to resume gameplay on the actual Switch unit? It doesn't look as cool, but I think it makes sense in a utilitarian way.
Especially because now that I'm thinking about it more, it really almost only makes sense that way. Because if you're picking it up, you're going somewhere. So why would you want to keep playing immediately after picking it up? So it makes...
Oh, that's actually true, yeah. Or, I guess unless you're just walking to the bathroom or to the bedroom or something.
That's true,
because, a lot of people are going to be playing this on the toilet.
Oh my god. I never want to touch anyone else's Switch. Jesus.
That's actually a really good point. That's something that's never safe now when you go to someone's play. You can never play their Switch.
You're right. Oh, geez.
Yeah. And that's what's cool, though, is that, even aside from taking it out of the house, the Switch does kind of deliver on the promise the Wii U kind of started. Mm-hmm. Where you can go in other rooms, but obviously the range of, the working range isn't all that large. So it's nice that we can finally do what the Wii U was kind of promising all along.
Yeah, it's totally true. I mean, there's no invisible tether this time. You can take it wherever you want.
Right.
I guess only a couple of final things to mention here, and they're small points, is that when I was looking through the footage last night, I noticed that on the bottom of the system, you can see what looks to be a USB-C port. I actually only called it USB 3 in my video, but it's a USB-C port, which I believe also means it would be USB 3, which is cool, if that is in fact the case. Like, it's the next generation of USB. You can put it, there's no upside downs, no matter what, you can get the cable in, which is a nice change. I've got my phone, so it'll be nice to have a second device that actually can use the same cables for once, or that type of cable. Secondly, though, and perhaps more importantly, is on Reggie's controller, because he was using the Pro controller, the Switch Pro controller. I noticed if you looked at the back of it, or the front of it, the side facing the TV, I still don't know, is that the back or the front of the controller? What would you call that?
I would call it the back of the controller.
Okay, alright, there we go.
Yeah.
Alright, so on that portion, you can see like a black reflective cover, like a piece of plastic over it, which kind of similar to the Wii Remote's pointer. And so it's making me wonder, like, could that be a pointer as well? Because it's already been suggested that the Joy-Con controller itself has a pointer at the bottom, which I think you can actually even see in this video as well, by the way. So this might suggest that the Pro controller also has one, which would be pretty, I don't know, I think that'd be pretty interesting, and actually would be kind of similar to the PS4 controller, actually, with its light bar.
That's exactly what I was thinking of, actually, and even just the way you can kind of use motion controls in the DualShock 4 to enter, like when you're entering like letters or something on a menu, you can like subtly move the PS4 controller to kind of guide an on-screen pointer to what letters you want to press.
Right.
So I'm thinking you could do something similar with the Switch Pro the Switch Pro controller, or that it'll have similar functionality where you can just hold the controller up and kind of move it around and guide this on-screen pointer, which I think is pretty cool.
That might be the solution to Splatoon. That is how you show, that's how you choose where to go on the map.
That's a really good point. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it does seem like Nintendo, as we learn about each piece of the Switch, that they're slowly accounting for all the questions that we've had over the last year or so in terms of support for last generation games, at least in terms of the ports we're getting of Wii U games. So yeah, it seems like they're really accounting for every possibility here.
I guess the final thing I just want to mention real quick is I thought it was pretty darn awesome. I don't know if it was officially on the show, but did you see the video of Miyamoto playing guitar with the Roots, the Super Mario Brothers theme?
I did. I saw like a snippet of it. I didn't see the whole thing.
Oh, that was awesome. I don't know. I just thought it was really cool. Like
that's cool.
Yeah, it's just really fun to see. Like this seemed to be almost a perfect venue for this event. Like everything tied together. It just all worked really well. It gelled. It made sense. Seems people loved it, and I think this is a great start for the Nintendo Switch. Like it's helping. Like this already is helping them reach a broader demographic. Especially with the fact they have a product that people actually seem to care about and want this time. So Ash, any final thoughts all about any of this, or are we done here?
I just want to comment on the fact that I'm glad that the Switch still has a matte surface. Like that, I think alone goes a long way towards selling this kind of this sleeker, more functional design. Because it's really hard to sell a glossy styled electronic and make it look cool, with all the fingerprints and smudges. So I'm glad that the Switch is still retaining that matte finish. And but I blame you, because as cool as I think the Switch is looking from a physical standpoint, you showed me that dark blue one, that mock-up, and that's all I want now. I don't want a gray Switch. I want a dark blue one.
I totally agree. Like I've seen the blue one. I mean, that will be the one I get because it matches our logo color, of course. But it looks awesome anyway. But I've seen
so cool.
an orange variant as well. Like the contrasting colors look fantastic, and I really hope that becomes something you can do. Or something that Nintendo makes, because that looks great.
I hope it's not just the slate gray at launch. I think it will be, and that's fine. And it's not going to be like a bad thing. I'm not knocking them if that's what the case is, but just that slate gray is fine. But man, I want that blue. Like I know that obviously it's just a mock-up, but just give me some color, even white. Like I feel like white could be pretty cool, or some sort of lighter color. But yeah, I don't want only slate gray, because now that I've tasted what other colors can look like, I'm like, that's what I want.
Now that you've tasted the rainbow?
Yeah. Exactly.
Alright, I think we're about done here, guys. So thanks for watching. If you liked our discussion, make sure to like and follow us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain. You can find links to them in the description below, which is a good way to keep up to date on everything we post. And of course, stay tuned to GameXplain for more on the Nintendo Switch and other things gaming as well. Catch you later. Bye.